Today I'd like to talk about Bethesda's continued use of the creation engine. Some people are saying it will hold back Elder Scrolls 6 and Fallout 5, and that Bethesda would be better off switching to Unreal. But there's a darn good reason why they continue to use these engines, and why they created Oblivion Remastered by marrying Creation Engine with Unreal graphics, and that is object persistence. Object persistence means that if you drop something somewhere in the world and leave, when you come back, it will still be there. It's what allows you to hoard every cheese wheel in Skyrim. So where did this idea of object persistence come from? Well, it basically came from Gary Gygax. Gygax's Advanced Dungeons & Dragons wasn't just rules for play. Gygax also attempted to model an entire fantasy world using probability and mathematics. The overlap between early role players and computer engineers was extremely high, and a lot of those engineers wanted to replicate Gygax's world, at least in some form, inside a computer. But that was hard to do with just 48 to 64K, so these games were amazing, but they fell short of that goal. But these were the games that made it to Japan. The Ultima and Wizardry series, in particular, were huge hits in Japan and were inspirational. But the Japanese loved them not for their world simulation, but for their gameplay, tactical combat, and storytelling opportunities. This is what they adapted into their own RPGs, and it's why Western and Japanese RPGs can feel so different. But in the West, attempts at world modeling and object persistence were starting to pay off. In 1986, Starflight modeled an entire subsector of the galaxy with 250 star systems and over 800 planets. That's more than Starfield. It had perfect object persistence. Drop something on a planet's surface, fly to the other end of the galaxy and back, and it would still be there. The IBM PC's 640K of RAM and floppy disks made object persistence a reality. Lord British's Ultima series was also trying hard to do a world simulation. Ultima 4 and 5 had full conversation trees and schedules for NPCs, but it wasn't until Ultima 6 that the Ultima series had full object persistence, barring bugs, of course, and Ultima 7 continued that trend. And then something else happened. Another genre of game emerged, the immersive sim. These games also tried to create flexibility by having object persistence in a 3D world, one usually explored from the first person. These games also started to shed, or at least de-emphasize, their RPG roots, but practically all of them had object persistence, and for the same reason their RPG progenitors did, because it makes the world feel more real. As both the immersive sim and 3D RPG genres developed, it became necessary to separate the interiors of buildings from the exterior world map, and with that came loading screens, which apparently are kryptonite to a lot of modern players. The thing is, Bethesda's toolkits, the construction set for Elder Scrolls and the GEC for Fallout, were great at object persistence and world simulation, and they were polished to make it easy to create content. Josh Sawyer, who worked on Fallout New Vegas, said, "This engine is incredibly easy to make content for. Without GEC and without the pipeline of this engine, we never would have finished this game in 18 months. This is the best content creation pipeline of any game that I've ever worked on, easily. It's buggy and unstable and it's frustrating, but it's incredibly easy to make content for." So object persistence and world simulation are really important for Bethesda games. Creation Engine can do this, Unreal and Unity can't. Case closed, right? Except there is a game based on Unreal Engine that has a fully open, seamless world and perfect object persistence. But it's not an RPG, and it's not an immersive sim. It's a factory automation game called Satisfactory by Coffee Stain Studios, and it's probably my favorite game of all time. Coffee Stain spent years adding the features they wanted to Unreal 4 and later 5, as well as optimizing the game to run well despite the huge number of objects in the world. So if Bethesda wanted to, they absolutely could get a code license for Unreal 5 and add those features to the game. Of course, if they really wanted to do that, then they should have started adding those features years ago, which they clearly haven't. I could make a snarky remark here, but I'm not going to. So it's clear that since object persistence is a necessity for Bethesda RPGs, switching to Unreal now wouldn't be a good idea. A better one would be to go the Oblivion Remastered route and marry a creation engine backend with Unreal graphics. But if some enterprising startup wanted to use Unreal to make an RPG with object persistence, Satisfactory proves that they absolutely could, and some additional competition in this genre could do it a lot of good. Thanks for listening. If you got this far in the video, then you might be interested in some of my other projects, like Ultima 7 Revisited, where I try to create a 3D remake of a classic 90s RPG. See you later.